When you look at games released in a given year, you'll probably spot some games that attempt to give players that hit of nostalgia. This is done in one of three ways: a remake, a remaster, or a re-release. These can have one of two responses from fans when they are announced: rejoicing because a new generation can experience something they experienced at an earlier age, or the reaction of dread, wondering how the developer will ruin a game they love. I'm sure there's a lot of them every year, but I noticed how many of these games released in 2021, and what's even more shocking is how many of these I've actually played. While there were some that were pretty solid, there are also games that really dropped the ball, and today that's what we're going to look at. We're looking at my top 5 disappointing remakes, remasters, and re-releases of 2021. Keep in mind that I'll be talking about the ones that I played, so sadly the GTA Trilogy Remastered will not be in the video, and neither will the Switch version of the Nintendo 64 games, with Ocarina of Time being the worst offender. I refuse to pay for them. So with that out of the way, let's begin. RWBY is a show that seems like a perfect fit for a video game adaptation. Hunters and huntresses defending the general public from creatures called the Grimm with their weapons that double as guns, sometimes. So when RWBY Grimm Eclipse was released, it was pretty exciting to be able to play as these characters. It's a shame that the game itself is actually boring. It's a 3D hack and slash that consists of go there, fight waves of enemies, go somewhere else, fight another few waves, with enemies getting slightly more difficult. That is until the player figures out the way to cheese these fights. Even though there are 10 levels in this game, you're going to be coming across the same enemies over and over again. There's not much in terms of variety with enemies and the combos that you can pull off on these enemies, even in multiplayer, since there isn't much to it except for being a mindless hack and slash. So I have no idea what I was expecting when I saw that it was getting a remaster on Nintendo Switch. Maybe more engaging combat, better enemies, less repetition. Maybe I was hoping for an overhaul to the level design, but I never got it. RWBY Grimm Eclipse Definitive Edition is the exact same damn game with a different, lower res coat of paint. Same combat, same dialogue, same 10 levels. This game has very little new to offer to justify the asking price of $30. Had this included more content that wasn't the DLC, I think this game would have a greater selling point than just being a RWBY game. Stick to the BlazBlue game or wait until Arrowfell releases. Zombies Ate My Neighbors is probably one of my favorite games on Super Nintendo. It's a tough single player and a fun multiplayer game. That's why I was so excited to see that this game was going to finally be released on multiple platforms, only to be disappointed by the end result. Don't get me wrong, it's still a solid game, but it's a very bare-bones re-release. For visuals, you get a 4:3 aspect ratio and this background at all times. For control options, you get... Wait, what the hell? Why are the controls different? Well, at least the game's still fun to play. It even has a kick-ass soundtrack. Really? So the audio is at a slightly higher pitch as well. To be fair, after some time it's hard to notice, but oh boy is it noticeable at the start. And this is why I'm disappointed in the game. It had the opportunity to bring an awesome cult classic to modern consoles, but the port was botched. Sure, the gallery was nice, but would it kill Disney or .emu to put a little more effort into the emulation of the game? Oh, and I'm sure Ghoul Patrol has a similar issue, but this is the first time I've played it, and I had very little to say except this game is much slower and not as fun as Zombies Ate My Neighbors. If you can get past this, then it's still worth going through, at least for Zombies Ate My Neighbors, but Ghoul Patrol is a whole nother thing that, I wasn't really into. This entry hurts a little. For those who don't know, I love Monster World 4. It's one of my favorite Sega Genesis games that we never got in the West until it was re-released a couple times, and seeing this remake had me very concerned. From its reveal, it didn't look good. Thankfully, a bit more work was done to ensure that it was a remake that this game deserves, if only that was actually true. See, Asha in Monster World isn't a terrible game. It controls really well, and it feels very close to the original. It even makes improvements with combat by allowing for faster attacks with Asha's sword, gives the shield its own dedicated button, and adds a magic hit that does extra damage to enemies. Not only that, but health upgrades are easier to obtain, players can hold multiple potions, and backtracking to one of the 4 regions is a thing now in case you need to go back for an item. On top of that, the music was redone and it sounds very faithful, and it's a joy to listen to. I just wish the game didn't try going for a mostly 2.5D presentation. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of games that could do a really good job with this, but I feel like some of the animations for Asha didn't really translate well into 3D. It's definitely a downgrade after fans had some better releases with Wonder Boy the Dragon's Trap and Monster Boy Cursed Kingdom. Unfortunately, for console owners, there are going to be some very noticeable performance issues, but I will say this, if the console version is your only option, go with a physical copy. Because although the remake isn't as great as I would like it to be, the physical copy comes with the original and the emulation is fantastic. And that became the silver lining in all of this. I own a physical copy of Monster World 4 with the somewhat okay remake. I still enjoy the game, it's just, it could have been better. Pokemon has had somewhat of a mixed reception when the traditional games made their way to the Nintendo Switch, with polarizing visuals, audio, and a lack of content that struck outrage with some players, myself included. So when the news of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes broke, there was some concern with how these games would be handled, and for the first time, a main Pokemon game was not developed by Game Freak, mostly due to Pokemon Legends Arceus' development. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are decent Pokemon games, but underneath this decent JRPG, there is a laundry list of issues. Controls, visuals, a bunch of glitches, made the game look really unfinished. Speaking of looks, it doesn't really look good with all of its post-processing. Something that was done better by other Wonder remakes such as Link's Awakening. Not only that, but the audio seems to be a less compressed version of the original's music. A far cry from some of the amazing remixes we got with other remakes. And when it comes to the content of the games, it gets a bit more frustrating. If you were expecting elements of Pokemon Platinum to make it into the remakes, you'll be somewhat disappointed to see that the entirety of Distortion World is missing. Though there is one little tiny section in Raminus Park that is very similar to Distortion World, it's just not the same. Not only that, but the Battle Frontier is missing as well, only giving us the Battle Tower, giving us less replay value. Not only that, but the GTS, now called the GWS, is not accessible, and support for Pokemon Home isn't even implemented at the time of this video. How is a Pokemon game released as unfinished as this one? Clearly this is far below the quality of other remakes that have released in the past. They even kept the annoying tradition of leaving mythical Pokemon locked behind some kind of distribution item to release it at a later time, rather than attempting to weave it into a post-game similar to the Delta episode in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I still enjoyed playing this game, but it took some time to get over the issues that this remake had. Here's hoping the updates come soon because from the looks of it, it's just a $60, unfinished, budget remake from Nintendo. I'll start with the compliments for this one. Playing at 60 FPS or higher feels right for Sonic Colors Ultimate. And that's where my compliments come to an end, because my god is this one of the most insulting treatments of one of the better Sonic games. It seems like a company rushed out another one, and it looks unfinished. Audio issues, subjectively worse visuals, and tacked on extras made it really hard to recommend this game unless it was on a sale. Not only that, but at launch there was this dangerous visual glitch that plagued the game for over a week until it was eventually patched out. And yes, even though it was in early access, I still consider this a public release because everyone had access to it, and the glitch was still around. In fact, the patches made the game even more disappointing as the audio bugs continued to persist until a recent update forced the game's music into mono, and finally brought an option to use the original soundtrack only. By the way, this game has DLC where one of them is a music pack of 3 songs for $5, one of many DLC issues that this game had. But that's more of a Sega issue as opposed to just this specific game. See Super Monkey Ball for details. I've also never been more frustrated at how the community reacted to some of these glitches, either passing it off as emulation or claiming that they never came across these glitches, all for the sake of sticking up for Sonic. I thought we wanted these releases to be solid. So for the state of the game, the rate and transparency of these patches, and the reaction of the community, Sonic Colors Ultimate is one of the most disappointing remasters of 2021. I really wanted these games to be better than what they were, but every year has to have some amount of disappointment, unfortunately. Some stung more than others, but hopefully in 2022 we see higher quality and not rushed revisits to games of previous generations. In fact, I hope the same thing for original releases this year. And that'll just about do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, give the video a like, sub to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon for notifications for new videos and posts. Right now, I want to thank all of my supporters at the Chaos tier. Their names are scrolling right now. And the Super tier members are the ones who get their names mentioned, and they are Dork in a Hat, Tactical Discord, Martin YT Plays, Ultrasonic Hero, Clifford Longhead, Wispy55, and Ryan Wolves over on Patreon. If you want to support the channel in a bigger way like all of them, you can do so with a channel membership on YouTube by clicking the join button below the video or using the Patreon link in the description. Lowest tier is $1 and it gives you early access to videos such as this. You can also follow my social media stuff, linked in the description as well, in case you want updates on what I'm doing there. And that'll just about do it. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you all have a wonderful and safe day. And until next time, take care.